it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to another walk through the cards. Today we'll be taking a stroll through the Artful Timeless Tarot. I will share with you my thoughts about the cards and my impressions on this deck as we wander through the 78 cards of this tarot. With curated artwork ranging from the 14th century through the early 20th century, the Timeless Tarot uses classical paintings to reflect the Waite-Smith tradition of tarot. So let's take a flip through these lovely cards. So let's begin first. Let's take a look at the back of the cards because I do think the back of these cards are really beautiful. I like the colors and I like the artwork. However, if you get really close up and you look real detailed, this artwork is really grainy and pixelated, which means it probably wasn't created at the right resolution for print quality. And I do have to say that that is an issue that I find all throughout this deck, and it was, to be perfectly honest, a bit of a disappointment, especially because I was really excited to finally bring this deck into my collection. It does have borders around it, and again, the borders are grainy and pixelated. I do appreciate that at least the titles are in the artwork so that I can take those borders off, because that is going to drive my designer brain up the wall. So having said that, let's dive in. There are several images in this deck that are not very clear and the printing is not very good. I will point those out as they come up and try not to harp on it. So we begin with the Fool, and I really like this imagery for the Fool. I love the colors in this card. And again, I appreciate that the title and the number is actually in the imagery, so I can trim off that border, which is probably going to be happening. Next, we have the Magician, and it's definitely a very magician type card. We do have what feels like some squishing maybe of the imagery, but it is possible that that is just the painting. I am unsure what work of art that this painting comes from. And I do wish there was a little guidebook or a list at least that did attribute the artwork, because this is a deck of curated art. So I wish that we did have some sort of reference in order to be able to take a look at the original artwork and compare it to how it's being used on the card. So here we have the High Priestess, and this is one of the images in the deck that I really, really love. I love this interpretation of the High Priestess. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's a wonderfully chosen piece for this particular energy. The same with the Empress. I think that is just a gorgeous representation of the Empress. Those two cards, the High Priestess and the Empress, were kind of the two cards that really sealed this deck for me. But again, I do have to say that up close, the artwork, the printing is not very clear. It is better on these particular cards than on others. Here we have the Emperor, very traditional Emperor. It's a wonderful image for that archetype. And here we have the Hierophant. And again, this is one of those cards that the printing is not very clear. So when you get it close up and you're looking at it, you can definitely see that pixelation. His eyes are kind of funny in this picture too, but I think overall it does work fairly well for a Hierophant. If these keys weren't here, I would get more of a hermit vibe, but again, that's just my particular take on it. Beautiful Lovers card. I like the imagery, and I do really enjoy this Chariot. Again, it looks like maybe we have some squishing to try and get that artwork within the constraints of this printing. But I could be wrong. That could be the way that the artwork is originally, but it does look squished to me. But I think it's a beautiful image for the Chariot. And here we have the gorgeous Strength card. I think that's a perfect representation for strength. And here we have the Hermit. So I think it works really well for the Hermit. Here we have the beautiful Wheel. I think this is an absolute fabulous representation for the Wheel. I love it. I think it's a perfect fit. And the same with Justice. Again, a beautiful picture for Justice. Printing's not quite so clear on this one, but it still works well enough. And here we have our first Hangman, and there are several additional cards in this deck, the Hangman being one of them, or we have multiple representations. This Hangman is not really my favorite. It does work for Hangman energy, but I'm not, this will probably be one that I take out of the deck because It's just not my favorite in terms of imagery. I really like this one better, although I wish it did say hangman rather than suspension, but you know, I guess we can't have it all, but I do think this is a beautiful representation for the hangman. And here we have our first death card, and again, this is one of two that we have available. This, to be perfectly honest, was the one card in the deck that I really didn't like, and it's nothing against the artwork. The artwork is beautiful. The printing quality is actually very nice on this card. It's the dead elephant. That just breaks my heart. Elephant's one of the animals that I really connect with, and to see it dead on the card is just, it just breaks my heart. It does work really well for death, but I'm very excited to see that there is a second death card, although I do wish it said death rather than transformation. But this to me is a wonderful representation of death, and I think it's a very well chosen piece of art for this particular position. And here we have Temperance, beautiful Temperance card. And the first, I believe, of our devils. Yes, 2 devils. Trying to remember all of the multiples. I really like this interpretation of the devil. I like the imagery for it. I think it speaks really well to devil energy. This is probably the one that I will be leaving in the deck. So here we have our second devil with the renaming of Temptation. I'm not really fond of the majors being renamed, but seeing as this is an alternate card, I think it's just fine because I can keep in the one that works for me and take out the one that doesn't. This is a beautiful Tower card. I think this absolutely speaks wonderfully to Tower energy. We have this nice stable structure at the bottom and the disruption at the top. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful choice for the Tower. Here is the Star card, and this is the one card in the deck that I think is the absolute worst in terms of the printing quality. It is extremely pixelated. It is very... I'm going to see if I can get it to zoom in. It's very pixelated. It's very, very grainy. This imagery right here, or this printing quality, makes me think that these were images that were just taken off the internet and slapped onto some cards. That's not really something that you can do because the resolution quality of web images versus print images there's a huge difference between them. Without getting too technical and into the boring stuff, that's just not a process that you can really very easily do. And this image is a perfect example of why it is so grainy and blurry that you can't even see what's going on. And it's really unfortunate. And it's also unfortunate that it is the only Star card in this deck. So we can't even replace it. So this card was one of my biggest disappointments in this deck. So here we have the Moon, and this is a beautiful representation, I think, for the Moon. I love the scene going on down at the bottom here, and we still have the Moon, so I think that works really well. Love this Sun card. I absolutely think this is fabulous imagery for the sun. You just have this beautiful woman here, and she's facing the rising sun, and I just think that's really beautiful. Again, the printing quality is not fabulous on it. And here we have Judgment, and this I think is a really pretty image for Judgment. It's not generally how I see Judgment, but I think it works really well within the context of this deck, so I think it's a nice card. And the Beautiful World card, which I think is a very, very good choice for this position. We have all of the different women here, and we have some diversity going on, which is really nice to see. So then we move into our minors, and here we have the Ace of Wands. And I love this imagery for the Ace of Wands. It's very fire, it's very active, and I think it works really well for that position. And here we have probably the second worst printing quality in this deck, or example of printing quality in this deck, with the Two of Wands. Again, we just get such grain and pixelation. I will try to zoom in here. If you can see all that grainy in there, you can see here where the pixels are actually smudged because they've been blown up, most likely. I won't say 100% that that's what's happened, but it's from a design standpoint, with somebody who has a background in this kind of work, that is what it appears to be to me. So I really like this imagery. Again, same with the star, so it's really kind of a disappointment that it's really pixelated and blurry. Here we have our Two of Wands. which is a beautiful card, and our Three of Wands, which I really like, but again, printing quality, unfortunately, I'm probably going to be saying that about a lot of these cards. And here's our Four of Wands, which is a nice image. Our Five of Wands, which I really like. So I like all these kitties down here, and I like the cockatoo up there. They can't quite get to him, but he's there taunting them, and I just think that's kind of a cool image for that. Beautiful Six of Wands. And our Seven. Now, I think this imagery works really well for the Seven of Wands. It's just not really my favorite imagery to depict this energy, but I think it really does work well for the Seven of Wands. Love this Eight of Wands, really beautiful. A lovely Nine of Wands. And our 10 of Wands. Here we have our Page of Wands and our Knight of Wands, who unfortunately looks like he's been squished down to fit in the fit within the size specifications of the deck. Beautiful Queen of Wands. I love her red dress. I think she's gorgeous. And our King of Wands. And then we move into our cups with the Ace, which again, printing quality, not so great on that one. Here we have our Two of Cups, which again, grainy printing, and our lovely Three, which is very traditional imagery, but I think it works really well. It's a lovely picture. We have our Four of Cups and our Five. I really like this imagery for the Five of Cups. I think she's very beautiful. And our Six. So this deck came with a card, and this was actually the card that I got at like a greeting card size card. So it's nice. And here we have the Seven of Cups, and again, really pixelated and grainy, and just such a shame. Our Eight of Cups, which is a beautiful image. Our Nine of Cups. And our 10. It's a really lovely 10 of Cups. Our Page, a lovely Knight, beautiful Queen. Love this Queen of Cups. I think she definitely embodies the Queen of Cup energy. And him for the King of Cups, I think he works really, really well. It's definitely got like a nautical theme to it, and I think that's really beautiful. Here we have our swords with our Ace. And our Two of Swords. Love this Three of Swords. I think that's a great interpretation for the Three. I'm really happy to see that there's not a heart with 3 swords sticking out of it, because this, I think, just opens it up beautifully. So excellent choice for this card, I think. Lovely Four of Swords there. Again, some minor printing issues, resolution issues. Five of Swords. Very traditional looking. Love this Six. I think it's just a stunning, beautiful image. The Seven of Swords. So I like about this one, you definitely get that sort of thief-like energy, if that's the way that you read the Seven of Swords, which I don't, because I read it more numerologically. So I like that that opens that up to you know, more interpretations than just what we traditionally see with the thief imagery. Lovely Eight of Swords. It's a beautiful card. I really do like this Nine of Swords. This is a great picture, or this is a great depiction, I think, of the Nine of Swords. Again, not completely tied into a Waite-Smith tradition, definitely more open to different interpretations, which I really enjoy. Beautiful 10 of Swords. I like this imagery. There's not the 10 swords in the back, so I think that's really great. Definitely more open to interpretation like some of the other cards. Our Page of Swords. And our Knight. Our Queen of Swords. Our King of Swords. And then we move into our Pentacles, which again, this is a beautiful card for the Ace of Pentacles. We definitely get that sense of abundance. The image looks a little squished, but it's It's a great picture for it. Really love this for the Two of Pentacles. You definitely get that sense of balance. I think it's a really beautiful image for that. And the Three of Pentacles, again, printing issues with that one as well. And the Four of Pentacles, same with the resolution quality not being what it should be. But it's a great Four of Pentacles. Really like this Five of Pentacles. Very powerful image, I think, for that. Definitely we get the traditional imagery for the Six of Pentacles, which I think works really well. This deck is meant to align with a Rider-Waite-Smith tradition, so I think this more traditional imagery works really, really well for that. But I do like that it's more open to interpretation. I do appreciate that. Lovely Seven of Pentacles and our Eight. Definitely get that sense of hard work there. There's extra text down here at the bottom that says Eight of Pentacles that is bleeding over into the border. I haven't seen that on any other card, so I'm thinking that was just some sort of notation that didn't quite get covered up. The Nine of Pentacles, love the bird, I think that's really beautiful. The Ten of Pentacles, our Page, which is a really lovely card. Our Knight of Pentacles, beautiful Queen. Love the Queen of Pentacles. She's always one of my cards I look for. And the King of Pentacles. So there you have a look through all of the, I think there are 83 cards in the Timeless Tarot. So, this deck, to be perfectly honest, is a little bit of a disappointment. I really love the use of this classic curated artwork. However, the printing quality is really poor, from the borders down to some of the images. Perhaps if you're not a designer and you're not maybe looking for that, perhaps you might not notice it, but being that that is my background, I do notice it, and it is very distracting for me. I will definitely be removing these borders because they are very grainy and pixelated. Again, this deck to me feels like it was not created at the proper specifications and resolution to be a print product, but I really do like the imagery and I really do like the idea behind it, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep it and start working with it. Again, I think a little bit more attention could have been paid to the print quality of the images chosen and the printing of the deck itself. But I do think that it's a beautiful deck, and I am looking forward to working with it because I love this sort of classic artwork, and I do wish that the printing was a little bit clearer. I will add the caveat that I am a designer by trade, so I do notice those things, and they do stand out to me probably more so than they do for other people. But I do think that it's important to be aware of those things, especially when you're looking at spending, quite a bit of money for a deck. This is an indie deck. It's not as expensive as some indie decks, but it's definitely more expensive than a mass market. So I think it's really important to bring those things to the forefront so that you can make those informed decisions when it's time to purchase. Overall, I'm happy with the deck. I do think I will probably make some changes to it, do some modifications to try and help me work with it a little bit better. But I do think despite its poor printing quality, it is a really nice deck, and I think that the images chosen work really well for the tarot. So I am really excited to work with it, despite some of those flaws. Thank you for joining me for this walk through the Timeless Tarot. I hope you enjoyed this stroll through the cards and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.